Implications of and Accommodations for America's Aging Population by Athena Splett. America, like other first world countries, is experiencing a graying of its population. As living conditions improve, the segment of the population represented by seniors is increasing dramatically. This increase in the aging population has several meaningful implications for our country in a variety of different domains, including the economy, government and social programs, infrastructure, and healthcare. To understand what exactly is happening, we need a little historical context. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, at the end of the 19th century, the average life expectancy for Americans was 47. It has since increased by 62% to 76 years old. There are several factors that play into this. Large-scale food production and improved transportation has provided increased access to resources for a widespread number of individuals. Food insecurity has lessened, and increases in childhood nutrition have laid the foundation for extended longevity. Developments in public health, such as improved sanitation systems and access to clean water, have greatly reduced transmission of infectious diseases. Furthermore, advancements in medicine have also played a massive role in increasing life expectancy. Things like vaccines, antibiotics, more effective treatments for cancer, improved understanding of genetic disorders, and a wide variety of other life-extending practices and knowledge have allowed us to transform our healthcare system. The older population is expected to continue to grow significantly and is currently burgeoning, as approximately one-third of the baby boomer generation is now over the age of 65. It is estimated that by the year 2035, there will be more people over the age of 65 than there will be children. This shift in demographics will have a significant impact on many aspects of society. One of the major issues we face is in healthcare. Most older people have at least one chronic condition, and many have several. According to the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey of 2016, over 35% of people age 65 and over report having one type of disability related to either difficulty in hearing, vision, cognition, ambulation, self-care, or independent living. In 2016, 93% of non-institutionalized people aged over 65 were covered by Medicare. Medicare covers mostly acute care services and requires beneficiaries to pay part of the cost, leaving about half of health spending to be covered by other sources. This has the potential to create substantial financial burdens to those with multiple chronic illnesses and/or impoverished seniors. However, the primary issue for seniors is not insurance coverage, but a lack of practitioners who specialize in gerontology and are effective at treating the elderly while accommodating their needs. At a time where primary care physicians are often expected to see more patients and accomplish a lot during their brief visits, it's becoming more common for primary care physicians to avoid older patients entirely due to the complex and time-consuming nature of their visits. As such, not enough geriatricians are being trained to meet the growing number of older patients with multiple chronic illnesses. Many geriatric fellowship programs are under-enrolled, and a budget proposal from the Trump administration eliminates the already limited funding for geriatrics training and greatly reduces expenditure for research into aging and age-related conditions. In January through June 2017, 97% of persons aged 65 and over reported that they did not have a usual place to go for medical care. Another issue is the economics surrounding an increased proportion of older people in the population. Senior citizens are America's most economically vulnerable population. Because of declining health and further declines in physical and cognitive ability, changes in circumstance present significantly more obstacles to the elderly than they do to younger populations. Over 4.6 million people aged 65 and over were below poverty level in 2016. Another 2.4 million of older adults were classified as near poor. In 2017, 9.6 million Americans over the age of 65 were in the labor force and constituted 6% of that labor force. Participation of men aged 65 increased from 15.8% in 1985 to over 20% today. The participation rate for women increased from 7.3% in 1985 to 15.7%, effectively doubling. These numbers are expected to gradually increase. The reasons for this vary. Some continue to work because they genuinely enjoy it, while others are forced to do so out of necessity. Regardless of the reason, increases in older worker proportion shape the dynamics of the workplace in many ways. Finally, another huge area of concern is infrastructure. The aging population has a distinct impact on how urban planners do their planning. These planners of previous generations typically focused on things like open areas, schools, and family-oriented public spaces. Now they are increasingly asking questions that reflect the changing demographic, such as what qualities of a community make it more livable for older persons? Where should housing be for the elderly be? To what extent should urban renewal account for older persons? What impact will an increasing number of older persons have on the local economy and public transportation systems? These questions will fundamentally alter the way in which our cities are designed. Research on age-related attitudes in the United States consistently finds that negative attitudes exceed positive attitudes towards older people because of their looks and behavior. These stereotypes, discrimination, and devaluing of the elderly as seen in ageism can have significant effects on the elderly, affecting their self-esteem, emotional well-being, and behavior. According to one study, old age is a risk factor for depression caused by such prejudice. When people are prejudiced against the elderly and then become old themselves, their attitudes turn inwards, causing depression. Old age depression results in the over 65 population having one of the highest rates of suicide. So how then do we begin to address these impending issues and change our perceptions of the elderly? First, we must have some understanding of the theories of aging. Because our focus is the social advancement of senior citizens, I will predominantly stick to social theories. First, we have Erikson's eighth and final stage, integrity versus despair. This stage begins at approximately 65 years old and ends at death. The central crisis that results in the individual experiencing either integrity or despair begins when an aging person begins to confront their own mortality. Life events associated with old age, such as retirement, the loss of a spouse, the loss of friends, diagnosis with a terminal illness, and other such changes that occur with age can be the catalyst for this transition in stages. Successful resolution leads to the development of what Erikson referred to as ego integrity. These people are able to reflect on their lives with a sense of contentment and face the prospect of death with wisdom and minimal regrets. Those who unsuccessfully resolve this crisis will feel a profound sense of regret and feel as though they've wasted their lives. Next, we have disengagement theory, which was proposed by Elaine Cumming and Earl Henry in their 1961 book, Growing Old. It was the very first theory of aging developed by social scientists. This theory states that, quote, aging is an inevitable mutual withdrawal or disengagement resulting in decreased interaction between the aging person and others in the social system he belongs to. This theory claims that this is normal and reasonable, and unfortunately, because they proposed that it was universal, it has led to considerable criticism. Another theory that both relates and opposes disengagement theory is socio-emotional selectivity theory proposed by Laura Cartanson, which proposes that as people age, they become more selective about the people and activities they dedicate their time to, narrowing their interactions to those that they deem important while largely abandoning those that are peripheral to their lives. In this context, the behavior of old people is viewed more as a honing in process than it is disengagement. Then we have activity theory, which proposes that remaining active and cultivating meaningful social interactions makes for healthy aging. It takes the view that by remaining socially active, an aging person can enhance their quality of life and even slow the process of aging. This theory directly opposes the disengagement theory and was developed by Robert J. Havinghurst in 1961 and further supported by Bernice Newgarden in 1964, who stated that satisfaction in old age has a strong correlation with how actively an older person maintains meaningful relationships and activities. Finally, we have continuity theory. This theory was proposed in 1971 by Robert Ashley in his article Retirement and Leisure Participation, Continuity or Crisis, which was published in the journal The Gerontologist. This theory states that, quote, a large proportion of older adults show consistency in their activities, personalities, and relationships despite their changing physical, mental, and social status. Later, he expounded upon his original theory to include the concepts of internal and external structures of continuity. Internal structures of an individual include personality, ideas, and beliefs, while external structures include social roles and relationships. These structures of continuity factor into an individual's ability to maintain a steady self-concept and influence how a person adapts to their environment. So what conclusions can we draw from these theories? Well, nothing definite, that's for sure. The truth is that everybody develops differently depending on their circumstances, whether they draw inward or maintain their former occupations or even develop new ones. The ability to age with dignity and in a way that suits the individual should be viewed as an essential human right. The goal should be to prevent despair and promote integrity for all aging Americans, regardless of their situation. However, with widespread breakdown of the extended family, it becomes more of a community responsibility to care for the old, and as such, a number of social programs exist to facilitate that care. Every state has an aging services division, and a wide range of statewide assistance programs are generally available to eligible seniors, including home health aides and nursing care, home delivered meals, help with household chores, transportation to shopping and medical appointments, as well as counseling, advocacy, and legal aid. Elder care is often prohibitively expensive. As such, many families are forced to care for their older loved ones. Therefore, many states offer caregiver assistance programs to support family caregivers with information, counseling, and other services. Unfortunately, there are gross misconceptions held by many with regard to the distribution of public assistance. What many view as handouts to the poor are actually social programs designed to aid senior citizens. More than half of federal funds towards social assistance are allocated to elder care and Social Security. Only 30% are targeted to low-income individuals and families. Nevertheless, the push from certain lawmakers to cut funding for these social programs increases, and these cuts disproportionately affect senior citizens who represent the majority of beneficiaries of social assistance programs. Recently, I interviewed my father-in-law, Stuart Olson, who will be turning 82 this year. We got on the topic of how to properly accommodate the aging population and more actively incorporate them into society. Stu asserts that poverty is the most pressing issue that aging Americans face. He takes a far more proactive stance and insists that instead of implementing reactive policies that seek to temporarily remediate geriatric poverty, we make active strides to prevent poverty in the first place, starting at a young age and shifting more focus toward improving education and social services for children. However, those kinds of changes, were they implemented even now, would only benefit those who enter old age 60 or so years from now, which leaves those who come before in the proverbial dust. Therefore, Stu suggests a spectrum of services be offered which allow older citizens to live out the remainder of their lives in the least restrictive environment possible. Obviously, that level of individualized care would require a level of investment not likely to be granted by lawmakers, but our conversation was only ever theoretical to begin with. So here's me as an old lady. Hopefully Russia enjoys this picture as much as I do. I post this to illustrate the fact that whether we like it or not, the demographics related to age are shifting, and barring tragedy, most of us will eventually contribute to this changing landscape. It then becomes more important on a personal level to consider the ways in which we will navigate the world and the opportunities we will have available to us as we grow old. It should be the goal of everybody to incorporate our aging citizens into society with respect and dignity. In closing, I leave you with this quote by prominent sociologist Robert Lind. The stress upon mobility rather than upon deep-rooted continuity, upon action and scientific technique rather than wisdom, upon change rather than growth, upon winning and holding status rather than receiving it freely granted at the hands of one's fellow, tends to displace men and women of advanced years in favor of their juniors. In such a culture, venerability has lost its meaning and old age its function. Robert Lind. Thank you so much for watching.